Robert Plank Show, episode 242, The 4 Ds of Reputation Marketing. Discover, define, develop, and defend with Pamela Gockley. Hey everybody, and welcome back to the program. Our guest today is Pamela S. Gockley, and she's a business owner since 1996. She's a speaker and a consultant, and during her business career, she created and built 8 businesses, which includes 7 startups and 1 acquisition. She has advised and mentored many other businesses, and Vigilant Corporation's award-winning services include customer service, sales, and marketing development. So Pamela, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm so excited.
I'm excited as well. And so, having read your bio, can you tell us sort of in your own words, like having said all that, like what makes you stand out? What makes you different?
Well, we have a focus on working on your reputation. Seeing the world change in 2008, we saw a huge shift because we do website development, so I do marketing. But we saw this huge shift from the way customers buy. So consumers are consuming products and services much differently. And what we found were businesses were not making that transition. So they weren't meeting their clients on the client's level. Clients are so educated. They can go Google anything. They can Google you. They find out what you're about. They can find out your footprint on the environment, where you have your things produced, who you are, where you went to high school. They check out your Facebook page, and then they contact you, and then you're not really what they found online, and that difference is reputation. So we help businesses understand. I call it the 4 Ds. You have to discover, define, develop, and then defend your reputation in order to be successful. And that's on a personal level as well as a professional level.
Awesome. So lots of good stuff there. And yeah, and it's almost like that, like you're so right. Like in 2008, so much changed where suddenly, like if you were to walk into a brick and mortar business now that, everyone has smartphones, everyone has scanning. I guess that word is showrooming, where people would just kind of
Yes.
scan and do their research there. And then if it was like a bookstore, just kind of scan the book on their phone and get it on Amazon and then leave the bookstore, and then the bookstore didn't seem to adapt. And so it sounds like you're saying that it's not just a matter of just bookstores or just brick and mortar businesses, but this whole whatever changes where now everyone researches, everyone's informed, also applies to us online people as well.
Absolutely, even more so because, there's nothing better than the conversation around the kitchen, table. And, the last check of a consumer test is ask your friends what they think about your products and services. And if you don't pass that test, all the research, goes out the window. It's basically a word of mouth and organic type marketing that's going on today, and especially online. Actually, my one company is called Reputatus, and I call it Reputatus because I feel reputation has been hijacked. And the only thing when you say reputation, people think of online reputation, where Reputatus is like your real face-to-face reputation. So we look at things a little bit backwards because reputat us, with the word us, means us as a community. Everybody knows who or thinks they know who you are. And in that difference is where you have to make sure who you really are is what they think you really are. So, when you're talking about branding, you're talking about telling people who you are. But with reputation is what people know you are. And that know you have to make sure is accurate. Did that make sense?
Yeah, it did it. And as you're sort of explaining this, what the thoughts are going through my head is that, I think that maybe a lot of people, especially us computer geeks, are focusing too much on like the little things or on the mechanics or on the tactics. And it sounds like when you're talking about this reputation thing, it's more like it's more of a strategy, because like you said, like that word reputation, all it really makes me think of is like your Yelp reviews or your
Right.
reviews on some review site, and then almost like piling on a bunch of fake reviews in order to drown out the bad reviews. And that seems to be like what what the common I guess thought is. But so what you're saying is it's not just that little tiny thing. It's like this whole all-encompassing sort of idea.
Absolutely. So if I have a client who is an attorney, let's say, and she has done a lot of really good work with families and things like that, and she gets a bad review on Yelp, sorry, on Yelp. But, her clients all are looking at that going, that doesn't make sense. That's not who I know. And then they go and they post something saying that's not their perspective because they really, really, know who she is. So if you have a strong reputation, it'll translate online as well. It may take a little bit longer, but yeah, as long as you focus on that face to face, the real reputation, and your real reputation always comes out. I know we're living in a scripted reality TV show right now for some reason, but in real life, your reputation will precede you, and you better make sure it's the real one. And, that's the first thing I ask people. I ask people, who are you? And they're really kind of like, blank faced, because who are you? And you want to make sure your reputation is who you want. In my first book, when I first did my first behavioral assessment, my assessment came back as egotistical, narcissistic, and aggressive. What?
Funny.
What? So once I realized what I was doing, and my problem was I was listening to answer, I wasn't listening to learn. Does that make sense? So I was so excited.
Like not really taking it in the way that you should have been.
Right, because I'm a geek too, right? And I can't wait to help people understand technology, but people need it the way they learn the way they learn. And I wasn't taking that into consideration. So that's where the aggressive part came in, because I was a know-it-all. And I was telling them the know-it-all what they didn't want to know. And so I can't, you know what I mean? So I wasn't listening to learn. I was listening to answer, which is different.
That makes a lot of sense. And so I mean, so I guess the lesson there is to sort of figure out your own personality and that kind of stuff. But you mentioned something that was sort of interesting, that like without politicizing or anything, it seems like there's a lot of people out there who maybe get attention by sort of being outrageous or being loud. And so is there sort of a way to get the good and not the bad part? Is there a way to sort of be true to yourself and take a stand for something without sort of being too negative or sort of put people off? And I ask that because I don't know, like with some of this branding thing, it's almost like the more I overthink it, the more I'm worried that, like, well, if I'm too careful about what I say, is there a chance for me to not even get noticed if I'm too careful like that?
Well, here's what I found, and this was years of learning this, and I'm old, so I can say that. But you have to really be comfortable with who you are. You have to be authentic to yourself. And if you're authentic to yourself, people will be able to recognize that. If you're faking it, we'll pick you out in a crowd of 1,000,000. You cannot fake it because people know you're faking it. And here's my last bit of advice from an old woman. Not everybody's going to like you. And that's all right. Nobody's ever going to you're not ever going to be liked by everybody. And people go, yeah, I know that, but you don't. You do. You're right. You cannot be liked by everybody. So as long as you're true to yourself, you're authentic, you're who you are when you wake up in the morning till you go to bed, if you're that authentic person. And if you come off as kind of a smart ass, but that's who you are, people can choose then if that, as long as you're accurate. And I always tell the truth, and people don't like to hear the truth. They don't want to, sometimes, personal development is frightening to some people, and I understand that. But then they're not really a good match for me and what I do. But, not everybody's going to like you, and that is the first step to finding out who you are on a really authentic level, and that you are the same person when you're happy, you're the same person when you're sad. Unless you have two personalities, and that's a different show, Robert. We gotta find that one. But as long as you're true to yourself and your authentic self, and you do that every day, and people judge you, you can't really help that. But as long as you are honestly who you are, you will be comfortable enough, and people will really respect that. Because, like I said, if you're faking it every day, I mean, think of some of the reality shows. These people are scripted. They can't even read the script without acting like they're reading the script. And they're not real. And we pick them out. And that's not where I want people to be. I want you to be authentic and not be ashamed of who you are, and be very proud of who you are. I can be really smart ass sometimes when I'm in that kind of mood. And people now know when I'm in that kind of mood. But they know I'm not saying it to be mean. I'm not being, I don't have a hidden agenda. I'm there to help people be the best that they can be. And if I have to push and I have to carry my 2x4, I will. And people respect that.
Awesome.
And like you said,
That
not
makes a lot of
everybody will.
sense. Yeah,
So,
and not everybody will. And so, as you're describing this, what I'm sort of I'm sort of wondering is, how does someone, is there like an easy way for someone to discover like who they really are? Is it a matter of like taking that own inventory, or is it a matter of like asking other people, or do they need someone like you to maybe review like their videos, or like what's the easy way to sort of discovering that?
well, you can do it yourself. And my book, The Reputation Factor, is actually kind of a step-by-step check off the box type of book. But some people want a little bit more help. But discovering your reputation, there's a couple ways you can do it. You can ask the people who love you, which I prefer you not do because they love you. Anybody under the age of 12 will totally be honest with what they think about you. Folks that you work with, approach in a very, professional manner, saying you're not trying to do some, professional development. You want to grow. You want to become more aware, your personal awareness, which is a huge thing. And ask people, take them for coffee or a martini, whatever you prefer, and ask them some really good questions, like, what is one or two words that when you think of me coming through that door, do you feel? This is more of the feel thing. It's in your heart, not in your head yet. I need you in your heart area. Or, you just observe when you walk into the room, do people come towards you, or do they run away from you? That's, kind of easy. And the last thing I suggest is called a DISC. It's DISC, behavioral assessment. If you go online, you can Google that and get one for free. And it was weirdly accurate. It is really, really accurate. It's a behavioral assessment. It's not a test. You can't fill it. It just will be weirdly accurate. And I would most people call me after they have the disc because they can't figure out why it came up. I was aggressive, narcissistic, and egotistical. And that took a little bit more time to figure out why those words were assessed to me. But that's what it was.
And it's been, I keep hearing like every now and then that everyone needs to take this DISC test, and that I need to take this DISC test, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I've heard it enough times where like I'm actually gonna go take that, because I keep hearing that like by taking this DISC thing and taking this assessment in particular, like I'll know about like you said, like these things that maybe we didn't think ourselves have these attributes,
Right.
but it comes out in the assessment.
I haven't met anybody ever in my 21 years of being in business that wasn't shocked at some of the things on their DISC assessment. I do one every year, and it's a 28 question assessment, and you have to be in a business state of mind versus like a son or a dad state of mind, then you get different results. But if you stay in a business professional state of mind, I take one every year. And if you have the dominant is like the general Custer attitude. If that's really high, you need to be aware of that. And really, people who are geeks will get run over by people with a strong personality. So do you want to win the conversation, or do you want to get results? It's a pretty simple question. And that's usually when people call me when they have this disc in their hand. They're like, well, I don't know what's happening to me. Help me. So I help them kind of figure that out.
Cool. So it's like that test tells them sort of where they're at now, and then you help them with now knowing this. What can you do with that?
Right, and then you have to figure out who you're speaking to. So I speak with graphic designers, I speak with coding people, and then I speak with marketing people, and then I speak with engineers. Totally four different groups of people. I cannot speak to engineers the way I speak to marketing people. And, do I have to do that? No. But do I want to get really good results really quickly? Yes. So I have to change my behavior because the only thing we can control is how we react in situations. I can't change you. I can't change anybody. I'm too tired and grouchy to do that anyways. But all I can do is change my behavior. And people go, yeah, I know that. No, you don't. You have to become a master at doing that to be able to get the results that you want. And no, you're not selling out, and no, it's not being dishonest. You are just trying to get the best results in the quickest manner, and that's by adjusting to whomever is you're speaking to across the table.
And that was a really tough lesson for me to learn too. That I think in a certain way, and other people don't think the same way that I do. And if someone sort of thinks or talks or reacts in a way that I believe that I wouldn't, then for whatever reason I sort of think that that person's not smart, even though they are. They're just different. And then vice versa, they're looking at me, and if I'm not acting and talking, thinking the way that they are, then they think that I'm not smart. So
Mm-hmm.
it's sort of like when like I saw some YouTube video the other day of like different politicians on on all kinds of different politicians, but when they do their campaigning, when they go to the South, they tend to like have that Southern drawl just because they're matching or they're mirroring more of sort of
Mm-hmm.
what they're seeing. And what really struck me as you were explaining that kind of stuff is that you retake this test every year, so it changes over time, the results.
Yes, absolutely. And you get better at doing this. And people think they're inherently born to be a really good networker. No, it is actually skills that you got to work on because, like in the first 4 seconds of people meeting you, their first question is, can I trust you? Are you trustworthy? Are you a warm person? Can I actually have get along with you? Then their second question is, are you competent? Do you have the skills to do what you're saying you're doing? So the first thing people want to do is build some kind of rapport, or they call it the warm and fuzzies type of thing. Can we get along together for more than 5 minutes, or do we want to scratch each other's eyes out? That's pretty important when you're talking about a business relationship.
Right.
So it's important to understand, like you said, and it is a hard lesson. Sometimes I leave a meeting going, what is that guy a moron? And I think back over it and I'm going, I was not communicating clear. I did not speak how he hears. I have to speak how people hear. And that is really, it's a skill you have to practice and that you have to get really, really good at. And through self-awareness, that comes with the self-awareness part. That's why I encourage everybody to take the disc, because until you understand yourself, you cannot understand the person sitting across from you.
Makes a lot of sense. And we mentioned you mentioned a few minutes ago that you have this thing called the 4Ds, the discover, define, develop, and defend, so that maybe when people now that people sort of know who they are, they can take these other actions. So can you kind of unpack that a little bit for us, the 4Ds, and what that's all about, and what people can do with that?
Sure. Once you have the first D, the discover down, then we move into the define, which is defining your goals. I don't set goals. That's too much pressure. I define goals. So where do you want to go? Do you want to become the CEO? Do you want to, move up in your business? Do you want to start a new business? So let's define it. And then in the third D, you develop it. So what do we have to do to make this happen? So it's almost like discover is your past, define is right now, currently, and then develop is your future. So when we develop it, do you need a website? Who are you talking to? Who's your client? Who's your target market? Who's your target messaging? If you want to if you want to move up in the career, you have to do research on what the next level of your company would be. Do you want to change careers? Do you want to change? So then we need to develop that. And then the last one, which is not my favorite one, but I had to add, was defend, because what happens when it hits the fan? You have to have that emergency plan in place, for what happens if you own a business and, something catastrophic happens, or, you know, personally, what happens, unfortunately you get, caught for DUI or something. What do you do? So this is kind of an emergency plan in case something goes wrong. And unfortunately, usually it's not if, it's when. So that we have a long-term insurance plan of what happens when things aren't going good.
And so I know that last part there, that's not your favorite subject, but do you have some sort of example where there was some kind of catastrophe and you had to help a client recover from that?
I did. I repair reputations as well. So, people like Paula Deem could have called me and we could have worked through, or, any, like the athletes that get in trouble and with, domestic violence. And I help people fix their reputation, just like, Wells Fargo that went through their employees opening false accounts. Those are the kinds of things I step in and I help rebuild a damaged reputation. Working with a doctor who wrote prescriptions for drugs that were, went across state lines. Folks who get caught with things on their computers which shouldn't have been there. So, I get into, people go, well, won't that hurt your reputation? It's like, no, no, I'm helping people recover from a bad decision. We all make mistakes. I don't judge people. And, helping with now those are extreme cases, or somebody has a bad review on Yelp. What do we do? Do we attack that person? Probably not. Had a client who owned a motel and somebody was complaining about a bug, and he calls me and he says, you need to get that off of Google. And I'm like, yeah, I'm good, but I can't get things off of Google. That's not going to happen. And I said, well, you need to apologize. You need to say we discovered the issues, we fixed it, and we won't ever have this situation again. And we thank you for your input. So what does he do? He goes and attacks her. So I had to leave him go as a client. So, again, I can't make people do anything. I can just help them kind of, navigate through the waters of repairing a reputation. So,
and is that usually like the straightforward process? Like if something like this happens that was maybe in the news or highly publicized, or like there's no way to get the pee out of that swimming pool, so to speak, is it just a matter of sort of apologizing, owning up to it, and then saying, well, now that we've made this mistake, here's how we're going to correct it?
Absolutely. And it's pretty much, you know what, Robert, that simple. And people just get so wound up because they're so emotional about it. That's the other thing. People get in their hearts and not their heads sometimes when they're talking about their business, and they say it's my baby. No, it's really, really not. You have to use some common sense. And, people are willing to forgive a lot as long as you own up to it. And, sometimes you got to start over. You got to be humble, and, you just need to want to fix it. And I can help people if they want to fix it.
If they want that help, and that's good life
Right.
advice in general, right? Have some
Yep.
common sense, and even if you're really passionate or wanting to make some sort of panic decision, take a second and sort of think about that.
Yeah, get a hold of a professional before you do anything. And, sometimes people have organizations around them and something happens and everybody in the organization is talking to the newspapers. It's like, oh my goodness, no. So, your staff has to be aware of what the policies are if something goes wrong. Nobody talks to the press. It's pretty simple. But if you don't have that as a policy, your staff doesn't know.
Good to know. And so if someone says, okay, well, I need to either repair my reputation, or my reputation could be better, or maybe I need to make some kind of reputation, they should go to you. It sounds like. So can you tell us about what it is that you have to offer for people, like your coaching services, your book, whatever you want people to know about?
Sure. First thing would be The Reputation Factor and The Art of Running Red Lights are my two books. It's a good place to start. If there is something in, like if you're in an emergency, you can send me an email, pam@reputatus.com, or you can go to the website reputatus.com and see about more what I do. I work with celebrities as well as athletes, as well as a business owner that needs some support in this area. And we found once the reputation process is started, the strategy is put into place. You're meeting your customers on the level they are, or if your personal reputation is not in order, you might have some trouble making those transitions to another job because your reputation isn't in order. So we help dig in and give you some homework and help you reach your defined goals.
And that sounds like all good stuff. And to make sure that everyone gets to the website, that is REPUTATUS. Is that correct?
Yes.
Cool. So
Yes.
reputatus with a U in there. Awesome. And so yeah. I mean, as you're sort of describing this, it sounds like this is the sort of area where everyone needs to at least, maybe they need to tune up their reputation, or maybe they need to recover from this kind of disaster. And it sounds like from the advice you've given and the case studies that you've talked about and things like that, it sounds like a lot of people do the wrong thing. A lot of people just kind of make the situation worse, or try to ignore it, or try to fight it. And so, in the same way that if your toilet broke, you'd call a plumber. If the cops grabbed you, you'd call a lawyer. Then, if you need this reputation thing solved, don't try to do it yourself. Go to the expert. Whether that means you're going to grab the book, The Reputation Factor, or The Art of Running Red Lights, or if you're going to contact Pam and say, here's the situation, what do you think? So everyone should go right now to reputatus.com, REPUTATUS.com, and either contact Pam or grab one, if not both of those books. So thanks so much, Pam, for stopping by the show and kind of entertaining us and informing us and giving us lots of things that we can use right away and that we should use long term. So I really appreciate you, and thanks for sharing what you had to share with us today.
Thanks, Robert. Have a great day.
robertplank.com/242. That's the place you should go right now to get the show notes, resources, and links related to our discussion with Pamela today. Thanks and have a great one.